Thanks for making it to Veterans Info Tap. I'm glad you made it. Let's talk about presumptive conditions. Presumptive conditions are different than other conditions that you would file for with the VA. Now, does that mean that if your condition is not a presumptive condition, don't file for it? No, it does not mean that. It just means you need to provide different evidence to satisfy the requirements for your service connection. Now, presumptives are typically an easier route to go and a smoother process for your VA claim. Now, let's talk about what a presumptive looks like, how you can win with a presumptive, and some hidden presumptives that all service members qualify for. Now, with that, let's jump into it. Before we do, though, I want to throw out a very, very special thank you to Jerry Baker 9519. Jerry Baker, thank you so much for the super comment, super chat. I truly appreciate your support so very much. Thank you again, Jerry Baker. All right, so jumping into it, presumptive conditions. Now, I'm going to tell you a little bit off the top of my head, then we're going to dive into some stuff directly from the VA on presumptives that are allowable for all service members, which is interesting if you understand presumptives. So presumptive conditions, most commonly, when you hear the word presumptive, you think about Vietnam era Agent Orange exposed presumptive conditions, and you think about Gulf War veterans with burn pit presumptive conditions. What are presumptive conditions? Well, there's a whole list, and I'm not going to rattle off all of the different conditions. What I'm going to do is explain the difference between a presumptive and a regular type of filing for a claim, right? A direct service connection. So a direct service connection, if you're filing a regular claim that is not a presumptive, you need to have proof of your time in service. You need to have your diagnosed condition that's chronic in nature or has some sort of residual effects. And 3, you have to prove the nexus. Prove that your condition manifested during your time in service or as a result of your time in service. When you look at a presumptive condition, it eliminates the need for that type of nexus. Out the window. No need. Which is the hardest thing for most veterans when they're filing their claim, is proving the nexus, proving that their condition manifested during their time in service or as a result of their time in service. Now with presumptives, the VA, presume, that's why they're called presumptives, they presume that your condition manifested because of your time in service in a specific location during a specific time frame, right? So that's why Agent Orange exposure, right? You got your timelines for your Agent Orange exposure if you were in service between here and here, Vietnam area and surrounding all that good stuff, all the different locations, and you have a condition listed as a presumptive condition for that area and time frame. Well, they just presume that it is because of the exposure to Agent Orange. Then for the burn pit, same thing. Gulf War, all the areas, right, during a specific time period from here to here, if you served in any of these locations, the VA presumes that because of burn pits, you're more likely to have come down with one of these conditions. Now, if you have one of those presumptive conditions listed for that area, well, now you just have to prove to the VA that you served in that area during that specific time frame. So whatever the presumptive list is, right? So you have to now prove my time in service. I still have to prove that I have the condition, right? You can't just say you have it, you have to prove. So you have to provide evidence of your diagnosed condition. It's important. So for Vietnam Agent Orange exposure, you have to prove to the VA that you have high blood pressure, for example. So you need to be diagnosed for high blood pressure, and then you would prove to the VA, whether it's on your DD-214, maybe you have something that shows that you were in Vietnam, for example. Well, now you have the evidence to prove that you were there during that time frame, and you have the diagnosed condition. You file it, it's a presumptive condition. They should just automatically award it to you, is how that works. Now, the rating schedule will be utilized to look at how you are impacted by that specific condition, and then they will give you a rating based on that. Now, here is interesting information that none of us were ever told, which is irritating. Nobody was ever told this, and that's why I'm sharing it today, right? Most of you watching, not going to impact you. I mean, it could. Maybe you did do something to qualify you for this, and you just didn't realize it, and now you got to go back and figure it out. So I'll give you the nutshell, and then we'll dive into it. For a lot of non-injury diagnosis, right? So let's say high blood pressure again. We'll use high blood pressure. Non-injury, right? I didn't break my arm, hurt myself, whatever. If you got diagnosed within 1 year of your exit from the military. So I was in the military, never wanted to go talk to anybody. Maybe I had high blood pressure, but they always made me, I was the guy that had to just kind of sit there for, all day long, rest, couldn't chew, couldn't smoke, couldn't drink coffee, had to wait for a very long time and had to be tested 17 times to finally get a reading that they accepted. And they negate the other 16 readings because they want you to, have a passable reading for your blood pressure. In any case, finally you get out, and then within 1 year you go and get seen by a doctor and get diagnosed with high blood pressure. That's a good thing, because if you get diagnosed within 1 year, there's a chance you could fall on the 1 year presumptive list for any veteran. Any veteran can fall into this category on the 1 year presumptive. Now, from the VA specifically, it says disabilities that appear within 1 year after discharge. If you have a certain chronic, long-lasting condition that started within 1 year after your discharge from active military service, you may be eligible for VA disability compensation. Eligible conditions include high blood pressure, arthritis, diabetes, peptic ulcers. Compensation provides, obviously, tax-free monthly benefits. And then it goes on here with the question, are you eligible for this type of compensation? Well, you may be eligible for disability compensation if you meet these 3 requirements. You have an illness or condition that's at least a 10% disabling and that appears within 1 year after discharge. So you don't even you could have started getting migraines after you got out of the military, and you could potentially get that rated through this. You may not have had arthritis during your time in service, or at least not known that you had it. And then it wasn't until 6 months after your time in service that you get diagnosed for arthritis, and that would be rateable. So the 3 things: you have an illness or condition that's at least 10% disabling that appears within 1 year of discharge. That's 1. 2, the illness or condition is listed in Title 38 Code of Federal Regulations 3.309 alpha, and you did not receive a dishonorable discharge. Notation here, it says if you get a disability rating, you may also be eligible for VA healthcare and other benefits, which is a very important side benefit, obviously, beyond the compensation portion. Another question here, it says, what evidence will I need to provide to support my claim? Here's what we'll need you to provide. 2 bullet points. It says evidence that your condition is at least 10% disabling, like doctor's report that shows that you take medication for high blood pressure, and evidence that your condition appeared within 1 year after your discharge from active service, like a medical report with a date of your diagnosis. There's another notation here. If you have a condition listed in Title 38 Code of Federal Regulations 3.309 alpha, you won't need to show the problem started during or got worse because of your military service. This is because we automatically assume or presume that that certain conditions that appear within 1 year after discharge are caused by your service. We call these presumptive conditions. Again, very important. Now, there is 4 other conditions that can appear during different time frames after your service that are still considered presumptive. One of them happens to be a lifelong presumptive, regardless of where you served, just simply based on serving, right? Or how these ones work. So here we go. There's 4 of them. Hansen's disease. Hansen's disease can appear within 3 years after discharge, and you can have that rated as a presumptive condition. Tuberculosis can appear within 3 years after discharge, and that would be considered a presumptive. Multiple sclerosis, hard for me to say, can appear within 7 years after discharge and be considered a presumptive condition. ALS, or Lou Gehrig's disease, that can appear any time after discharge. ALS, or Lou Gehrig's disease, can appear any time after discharge, and you are good to go with a presumptive. So if you have a family member that has Lou Gehrig's disease that served in the military, this is an important thing. So with that, thanks for watching. I appreciate you so very much. Have a great one, and remember, if we don't take care of each other, something went wrong.